Hi, everybody. Lovely to see you again today. And I'm Victoria Reynoldson. I have Michael Quigley with me here as well. Hello, Michael.
Hello.
Well, I'm really excited to be back for another live. We are talking all about confidence today, and confidence, particularly in the context of becoming a global leader. And I invited my friend Michael along. We've known each other for a little while now, and he is an absolute specialist when it comes to growing people, growing individuals and teams. But Michael, why don't you sort of tell people in a bit more detail what it is that you do?
Sure. So my name is Michael Quigley. I have a business called Kataholos. I'm on a mission trying to help 1 billion people. So I'm actually doing that. It's working. I train leaders kind of one-to-one. I do group training, and then I have online resources. I have an online learning platform and books and podcasts and stuff like that.
Excellent. And I'm just going to pause there. So 1 billion people, I think you just said that. Is that right? That
right.
is an amazing mission to have. And I absolutely know how many people you are already reaching out in the world today. I know you're very, very global with all your different training courses, apps, programs that you do. So, Michael and I have known each other for a little while. And today's live really is to sort of do that deep dive into the question of confidence, because this is something that comes up time and time again when I work with clients, but also when I'm sort of also doing online training. People ask me questions about when you're stretching out of your comfort zone, when you're stepping up and showing up at a really different level. How do you build that confidence to do that? Like, what comes first, the confidence or the stretching? Like, how does that all happen? Now, this is a LinkedIn Live. We're recording this and we're going live there. So if you're joining us today, please say hello. Please get involved. If you've got comments on what we're saying or questions, type them in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll absolutely check in on any questions we haven't answered right at the end as well. But Michael, let's kick off then. So from obviously this is an area that you know lots about. So what are the kinds of challenges that you find people have with confidence in this area of growing their leadership?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I've written some notes here, so I'm going to make reference to.
Sure.
The first is what I call shallow understanding, and please don't take offense by that. If you have a deep understanding of something, you generally feel quite confident because you know your stuff. But when we have a shallow understanding of confidence, a lot of people think confidence is like a light switch. Like you've either got it or you haven't. It's either on or it's off. You can either do it or you can't. I don't believe in that at all. I'd say confidence is more like a plant, and it can grow. So if you're watching this right now and you're confident, I'm not very confident. That's something you're telling yourself, as opposed to if you just say, well, I believe this thing can grow, just like a tree. Go out and have a look at a tree. So that's one of the first ones. The second one, which you should never underestimate, especially for adults, is the opinion of other people. The opinion of other people, especially in your family. Funnily enough, not so much your business, not so much your team, family members. The uncle or the dad or the stepmom or the granddad or the sister. You can't do that. We don't do that in our families. What are you doing? What are you doing? So opinions of others. Third one could be your own physical or mental health. I mean, I've been very ill this year for a few months, and I tell you, when you're not physically well or mentally well in yourself, you can't feel confident because you just don't feel competent to do things to a good degree. So if you're watching this and your health is poor, like look, be kind to yourself, because you're not going to be feeling as confident as if you were firing on cylinders. And then two more. One is a lack of kind of clarity on vision and purpose and what you're doing. That's something, that existential understanding of like, who am I? What am I all about? Where am I trying to go? A lot of people don't know that, including myself. I've had to work on that. And the final one, which is quite a generic one really, is fear. Fear stops us from doing pretty much most things, and some fear is healthy, and absolutely, when you're crossing the road, you've got to be careful, cars. But if you're kind of thinking of doing something and you stop yourself straight away, even just when you've had the thought before you've even done anything, then that's maybe something you might have a look at. So that's 5 just off the top of my head.
Wow, there's a lot there, and I'd love to unpack some of that. So first of all, this idea you talked about, like, confidence is a plant. We're always growing our confidence, whatever. So that's a really helpful idea, actually, because I do think some people feel like, oh, it's just something you're born with. It's just something you should have. It's either inherent to your personality and you have it, or you don't. That light switch idea that you talked about. And I love that idea of the plant, because of course that suggests as well, that's, your confidence is something you can nurture and cultivate and grow in that way if you really intentionally care for it. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. So just 2 things to pick up on what you said. anything that we think of, whether it's, confidence or a bicycle or an aeroplane, you always have an image comes to mind and a word. To be a human being, to understand anything, if I say to you confidence, you think of some kind of image and you think of the word confidence or whatever language you speak, right? So it stands to reason that you can just change that image. I used to think of it like a light switch, and look at her, she's amazing. Now I'm going to think more like a plant and a natural thing that can grow. So you can change the image. And then what that does is that changes what that word means to you. So it's the kind of the connotations of the word that's really key. And absolutely, every single thing I'm good at now, I was rubbish at, terrible at, like years ago, 100%. Whether that was playing a musical instrument, public speaking, running a business, being a writer, when I used to do martial arts, anything that I'm good at is not the result of natural talent. So I'll just give you a quick example. I remember when I used to do jiu-jitsu, and you'd have people that were really good, quite naturally talented, and they generally didn't last because they got bored, right? Because they couldn't handle that point where their confidence wasn't as high because it didn't come easy, so they just quit. Whereas someone like me, I was like, I'm just determined. I was like, I'm just not giving up. I'm just not quitting. And that in the long run, led to better results. So the wording and the image, and if yours is that's working for you, if it's fine, so keep it as it is. But if it's something you're like, know that you can change it.
Yeah.
And then
I
the
like
second
that idea very much, because I just jumping in there, like actually, if I think about plants as well, and that sort of metaphor of the confidence, actually, you need to take care of a plant, right? You need to give it food and attention and water and put it in the right light conditions. Otherwise, everything kind of wilts away. So I think that's a really interesting idea. And I loved your personal example of jiu-jitsu. I mean, interestingly, something I've started to talk about a bit more is actually, I absolutely hated public speaking, which is kind of ironic, bearing in mind what I do right now.
Yeah.
But that equally was a massive challenge for me in my early to mid 20s, and really suffered from quite sort of crippling, really found it very difficult to stand on my feet in front of people without going bright red, bright pink, and really struggled with that idea. So I think this is really important for people who, see it as, oh, they have it, but I don't.
Yeah.
So I love that concept. Gosh, there was so much you talked about. You talked about the opinion of others to sort of say what you can and can't do, or, to sort of affect, what we believe we can do. So can you just, is it always family, or can it be in a work context as well, that people limit kind of what we believe we can do?
Yeah. No, it's not just family. The reason I made a family reference is because most people have a family, and obviously they're watching this and they can relate that back to them. But if you're talking in terms of global business and global confidence, the more work, and you'll know this, you do globally, the more people you meet, and you start to realize that there are a few things. So for example, the value of the individual or the value of the group. Now, there's no right or wrong with this. Most of these things are found culturally as sliding scales, from one scale to the other. So you might have some cultures or some countries or some workplaces or some families where it's all about the individual, the power of the individual. It's all about you, get your stuff and go for it and hurt people. It doesn't matter, power of the individual. And then other cultures or other companies or other families, countries where it's all about the group, and you hold back out of the good for the group. So neither's right or wrong, but that can have an impact. And then you've also got the hierarchical structure. Some structures are very flat, and it's like you can talk openly here. And then some structures are very much like, well, that person, you need to listen to that person. That person's in charge. Veneration for ancestors, for example. In the UK, we wouldn't hear that phrase a lot, but if you go to East Asia, you would. So it's not just, say, families. It's much more just looking at the context of where you're at. And generally speaking, we like to conform. Generally, we do. We like to belong to a group. We all like to want to be individuals, but we kind of want our cake and eat it at the same time. I don't know anybody who wants to be lonely, and I don't know anybody who wants to be misunderstood. And so sometimes, out of wanting to belong, we'll kind of like take a back seat for the good of the group. Or then sometimes it's the other way. Sometimes you have people that are willing to be trailblazers. I always say there's two ways of coming into a party, right? You can come in a party like, look at me, here I am. I'm here. Party can start now. And we need people like that. I'm not like that, right? I mean, we need people. I know people, I'm sure you know people in the world that are like that. Then the other type of person's like, you come in the room and they go, hey, look at you. Good to see you. Now, both of those people are very confident, but in just different ways. One person is confident in attracting people to them, and the other one, the confidence is around raising the confidence of other people. So you start to feel that kind of vibe in the room. And I try to ascribe to the second one because I can be a little bit shy in certain contexts, which sometimes people find surprising. But
yeah, and I think that's a really interesting point you make there about cultural context. So how important for anybody who's watching this, and from in different countries, different cultures. Actually, there's no one way of doing this.
No.
And also this idea that, sometimes we feel like it has to look and sound a certain way, confidence, that it's the look at me showing off, or the extrovert actually showing off sounds, or has a judgment attached to it already in that wording. But you know what I mean? Like that very external and pushing kind of version of confidence. But of course, there are so many different versions of confidence, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's really interesting, a concept about this idea of you do you have your version of confidence and what it's about.
Yeah.
So how could somebody discover that for themselves? Because maybe they're not feeling that at the moment. Maybe they don't feel like it's something they recognize or see others doing. So how can you recognize it in yourself?
So I've written some ideas for you.
Okay, brilliant.
The first one is to believe in your ability, just by remembering that you're a physical entity that's part of this world. So forget how you feel about yourself and your ego and your past experience and any of that. Just as a physical thing that's alive, you have access. It's like the internet. You have access to energy and the ability to grow and change. And if you go back to the tree, right, just look at a tree. We're in autumn right now, or fall as Americans call it. You can just see the colors going red and yellow and all the leaves. It's beautiful. So the first thing is to recognize your ability to grow and change is not defined by yourself. You're part of a natural thing, and that's a beautiful way. A lot of people think they just need to do it. They need to make plans and projects, and that has its place. But the first is to feel welcome, right? That you're part of this growth and development journey called life. The second one, which I've really thought about for people, is to determine and dedicate yourself to something. It doesn't even matter what it is. So if we go back to the side of confidence, right? A lot of people, they say to me, they don't feel confident themselves because they don't know, say, who they are, or they've not got a lot of experience. That's fine, right? What I suggest is dedicate yourself to a cause, whether that be supporting a sports team or improving a skill or helping your mum with the cooking, or it doesn't matter what it is. But if you just dedicate yourself to anything that involves a level of sacrifice, responsibility, skill, and just don't give up for, say, 6 months, whatever that is, it will build your confidence 1,000%. So neither of those suggestions are to do with yourself and who you think about. First is about belonging somewhere, and the second is about dedicating to the second one. Sorry, and the third one is to try something that's way outside your comfort zone. I've done that this year. I went to street dance classes. Turned up the only man in the class. Everyone looks at me.
Okay.
Yeah, but hi. Yeah, well, I love to dance, right? And I have the confidence in my love of dance, if that makes sense, that I know I love it enough to turn up to a class on a Monday night and be the only man, and really nobody's bothered, because you have the mirror, and you have these mirrors, and you're just looking at yourself anyway. So even though you're in a group, nobody is looking at you; they're all looking at themselves. So those are 3 ways. So tapping into that natural growth and progression as a human being, dedicating yourself to a cause beyond yourself, because in a way that's easier to do. If your confidence is low, you just say, I'm trying to dedicate, raise money for this charity, say. And the third one is to try something that's just way outside your comfort zone, because in doing that, you're tapping into your true potential, really. And you can have a lot of fun with it as well.
I love those tips, because actually there's a part of this, which is the first one, which is very much about reflection and recognizing the sort of bigger context and the macro piece. But actually what you're saying here as well is that action, commitment, dedication actually starts to move your confidence forward.
Yeah.
And I like that idea of stretching your comfort zone in a personal life to help you build confidence in other contexts, because you've kind of then tried it once and tried it, you can see that you survive, that it's safe, that it's okay, that you're able to kind of move forward. So are you somebody who, and I think I know the answer to this question because I know you a bit personally, but for the people who are watching and listening, I mean, are you somebody who likes to challenge yourself? I mean, is that sort of core to who you are?
Yes. When I used to be a primary school teacher before I ran a business, and you're basically trying to teach people to love challenge every single day. And I once had, when we were training, this science teacher went to a high school science lesson, and this woman said to us as trainee teachers, "Where do you think challenge should be in this lesson?" And we were like, maybe like an activity at the end, or maybe for certain people. She went, "No, challenge should be everywhere, accessible all the time." And I was like, And she was absolutely right. So it got to the stage where I used to say to the kids all the time, yeah, it's hard. You go, yeah, but you like a challenge. They go, I like a challenge. And it starts to become this self-fulfilling prophecy. So, going back to what we said before about confidence, you have the image, but you also have the word. You can have multiple words that you attach to that, what you think, confidence is. So mine was, I like a challenge. So now when things are really hard and difficult, I have to say, I like a challenge, but that opens up everything. Because if you flip it for a second and think, I don't like challenging stuff, you're not going to be able to live. Because what you're basically saying is, I want it easy, I want it on my terms, and I want it the way I want. And you're never going to get that. And even if you did get that for one particular thing, the weather could change or somebody could die, something will happen which will shake you out of that. But if you say, I love a challenge, then as the challenges come, you're like, okay. And you feel capable to engage in it, if that makes sense, rather than say it has to be this way. And if it's not this way, I can't handle it, because that will really knock your confidence.
I think there's a concept there, which is kind of, it sounds like it's like a letting go of the control, almost that sort of sense of how it should look. And I think that's really valuable, because often we feel like we should be able to control things in our lives. Like, we're used to planning, and the people listening, I'm sure, are very capable and good at what they do and very, very talented at what they do. So you feel like you should be able to control outcomes and get what you're looking for. People are quite performance driven, right?
Yeah.
But what you're saying here is actually you need to let that go a little bit and actually just go with kind of trying it and challenging yourself, but then recognizing you can't control what the outcome looks like. Is that kind of what I've picked up correctly?
Yeah, it's something that I've only really this year as a business owner been reflecting on, which is basically know what you want and get it, and dedicate yourself to getting it, and just don't rest until you get it, right? Be like a dog with a bone. But if you're here, the way you get it, be open to the how, because it might be somebody makes a suggestion and they do it better than you could do it, or you go off down a side street. But what I'm trying to say is, I used to think, there's this, and like I said, I'm going to get it, I'm going to do it this way. It's not working. Whereas now I'm saying, I'm still going to get this. So even if you have a day where you're just like, oh, I can't do it today and I feel overwhelmed, you still say, yeah, I'm still going to get it though.
Yeah.
Still going to get, and that frees you up. Like I say, it frees you up from that need for control, because you dedicate yourself. You say, I'm going to get it. Don't know how, but I'm going to get it. And then your brain's the machine that starts to go, how? Oh, I don't know. It starts thinking, and you start to be open to suggestions and things from other people, because they often know a lot more than you do yourself.
I think that's really helpful, because actually I'm just thinking about a context where a lot of people I've been meeting recently are looking for new jobs, or looking to either get promoted or step up, or even kind of move careers or move companies. And there is a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. Like, people are fearful. And I want to pick up on that question of fear.
Sure.
So this idea of kind of, feeling like you want to control outcomes and you need to kind of get the next job, the promotion, whatever it is you're going for. I think this thinking is really helpful, right? Like, this idea of, your goal, but you can't control how, but you will get there because you're being more confident, more creative in how you look at solutions.
That's it. Yeah. If we go back to the idea of the jiu-jitsu analogy, just because it's quite a visual one, when we used to take a grading, so if you're white belt going for yellow or going for orange, green, purple, we used to train like you're going for the belt above the one, so you're not orange going for purple, you're orange going for dark blue or brown or black. So what that did was it dedicated you to a standard that was higher than you actually were being asked for. So by the time you walked into the door, you were like, this is mine, this is fine. So if you apply that to going for a job, say, or an interview, the confidence that you'll have in the interview, whether you get the job or not, that sends a very different message. Do you know what I mean? So if you're working, trying to get a new job, and you're dedicating yourself, improving your skills on the side, and you're walking in there going, I have got this. Even if you don't get it, it's not because you weren't good enough or whatever. It might be for a particular metric you don't know about. But I remember the last job interview I ever had, it's a long time ago, and it went so well because I'd taken the time to reflect on all I had to offer, which I'd suggest you guys can do. And the lady said to me, we'll be in touch. And I said, I know you will. Now, that might sound arrogant, but that's just because I felt in the interview we were aligned, because we were, and that's the thing. It's like, to go back to jiu-jitsu, it wasn't you have to earn the belt. It's you start the day with the belt. We want to give it to you. If you just mess up, then we can't give it to you. And I think life is kind of like that. It wants to give you stuff. It wants to give you as much as you want. We just have to kind of like put in the work towards it. Like say, relinquish the control a little bit. And it goes, you wanted this, but I've actually got this. And you're like, well, that's even better. I'll have that. Thank you very much.
I think that's so powerful, particularly for people who are in that space right now, job searching,
Yeah.
maybe feeling that pressure to get that next job or move it into a new role,
Mhm.
and to have that idea of what does confidence look like in that particular context, I think is really helpful, because it can feel, I know from talking to people, it's so much pressure that it has to be this job or this interview that is successful. But I hear what you're saying is almost like it's a broadening out of perspective and going in with the energy of, actually, I know I can do this. I know I can make this happen.
Yeah.
I'm conscious, this has been amazing. I want to make sure if there are any questions, please feel free, do type them in the chat. We've got Michael on tap now, very kindly giving his time. So if you've got questions about confidence, about some of his experiences, about what he recommends, then please do kind of type those in the chat now. But while we just see if there are any questions, Michael, I'm really curious. You talked about fear right at the start as one of those areas, and people often talk to me about their fears, about and how it's holding them back from action, because they worry about the what ifs and what might be, or even it might connect to the judgment and the opinion of other people. So I think the question is how can you move through those fears? Like, if they feel big and they feel very present in your life. I know that's a big question, right? But I'm just curious if you had any sort of perspectives you could share today.
Sure. Yeah, there's loads, but I'll give you some quick things off the top of my head. The first is all fear is temporary. Every single fearful situation you've been in and feeling in your body and mind passes. That's a fact. It won't kill you. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And recognize it and be real with it and go, whoa, this is real. But it's also temporary. Yeah. Specific and temporary. When we're fearful, we get overwhelmed because we go, there's this and there's this and there's this. Yeah. So break it down. It's temporary, and then be specific, right? This is going to last maybe a week. What is it? It's these two specific areas. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing is I would Google comfort zones, because we talked about comfort zones and I teach on this. But if you just Google it, you'll see the models, and it looks a little like an eyeball. It's like a circle with the next circle and the next circle. So 4 stages that's been developed by sociologists for 100 years. But basically, comfort zone, outside of that, like you've just said, is your fear zone. But beyond that is your learning zone, and beyond that is your growth zone, which gives you the goodies you want. So this is what I suggest. Depending on the context, so if it's a job interview, or going out on a first date or something like that, and it's out of your comfort zone, you might have to stay there for a bit and push on a bit, and challenge yourself and kick yourself a bit to get to that growth. Or depending on, like I said right at the start, you might not be physically well, yeah? You might have to retreat back into your comfort zone, rest up a bit, recover, and then go again. So it's kind of like going through a traffic light. You go through fear on the way to growth, but you also come back through it on the way to recovery. So that's something to watch out for. Sometimes you're scared because you've just been through a growth moment and you're coming back into, being recovering and resting. And you have that moment of like, like when you're winding down for the day and you suddenly have that thought at 9 p.m. or whatever it is, that's you coming back into your comfort zone. And on that, just to challenge, if people ever say to you, I live outside my comfort zone, I'm always pushing my comfort. It's not true. If you don't have a comfort zone, an organism will die. Right? Everybody has a zone where they have to go. They come home to a house, they eat food, etc., etc. So use that comfort zone. Go Google it, look at the image, and decide, in this context, do I have to push on? Because sometimes you have to, or can I pull back a bit, rest a bit, and then get the energy to go forward? I think we have a question.
Okay, great. I love that. By the way, I just want to comment on that. I really like that idea of you have to go through the fear to kind of get to the other side of that growth and learning. So thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate it. And I can see a question that's come in as well. So can you distinguish the feeling of fear versus when something truly isn't meant for you? Great question. Thanks, Maya.
Yeah, so thank you, Maya. So to pick up on a question, when you feel fear, it's quite fuzzy. It's not quite sharp. It's usually there's this and there's this, and you get in this kind of bubble. So what I'd say is go back to what you're all about. Dedicating yourself to the core, to who you are as a person. Is this something where you feel aligned with that, or is it, as sometimes people say, a temptation to be distracted? My father's Irish, and there's a great Irish phrase that says a good laugh and a good sleep, long sleep and a good laugh are the two best cures for anything. So if you can, maybe sleep on it, try and laugh at it, and then come back to it, kind of thing. So what I'd say is, for most fears, you're trying to distinguish between if it's something for you, whether to push on or not. Try not to make a decision in that moment, if that makes sense. Because most of the time, unless you're trying to run past a car in the road, decisions made in fear are not good decisions. I mean, I know sometimes when you're at hospital and somebody's, had a stroke, I get that, right? That's scary, and you've got to make a decision under pressure. I get that. Just do the best you can in that situation. But for when you're thinking through things and you kind of sat there pondering and there's fear, a line past it to saying, what is it? It's back to that thing of, is this going to get me to what I want? That's what I should have said, Maya, sorry, right at the start. Is this going to get me to what I want? If it's going to be closer, then great. If it's not, then it's probably just a distraction.
Yeah, love that. Great answers. Thank you so much. And great question. Thanks, Maya. Another great question is coming in, Ruby. What inspires you to write your books? Yes, because you've written 2 books now, right, Michael?
Yes, I've written a book on health and well-being and a book on leadership. Thank you, Ruby. That's a really good question. So Ruby's read my books, so hopefully she likes them. To be honest, I write because I listen a lot to what people need, and they tell me and they ask questions. And then if I don't see it there, I make it. So my first book was like, how do you actually look after your health and well-being in the modern world? I couldn't find the answer, so I wrote it. The second one was about leadership, but from love, because I was like, every single human being wants to be loved. Nobody's arguing with that. So why is that not the way that we structure our leadership in a practical way? Why is that? Because you always run out of money, you always run out of time, you always run out of energy. But if we've got that love, I always say to parents, I say, why'd you do all that? I love my children. Does that ever run out? And they go, no. Silly question. So for me, it was like, why isn't leadership not informed by that? And then I've got the third one I'm writing, because he's
Michael. Brilliant. What's your next book about?
I can tell you, it's all about learning, because as someone who trains and teaches, and you do the same, Victoria, we can get so busy teaching, nobody's learning. But everybody wants to learn, and they want to be this ongoing thing. Everyone's listening to podcasts nowadays. Everyone's, watching LinkedIn Lives. We want to learn, but we don't know enough about the process of learning, how our brains work, what's our preferred approaches, what's good for us, what skills are actually going to get us to where we want to go. Be that what we call lifelong learner. How do you actually do that? Because there's enough books written on teaching. So that's what it's going to be. And on all my experience as a learner over like 25 years or something like that. So,
amazing. Michael, that's going to be a brilliant book. I can imagine there's going to be a lot of great nuggets in that. And I know I've loved your last 2 books. Really enjoyed those and recommend them. So we'll look out for the 3rd book. But Michael, I'm really conscious, you've given so generously your time here today. And, we really appreciate sort of you sharing these really very wise insights. There is so much more I would love to ask you, so much more we could talk about to do with confidence. And I suppose what I'd love to mention now is that Michael very kindly has offered some further deeper online training for people who are signing up. Currently, I've got the doors open to my Global Leader Communication Program, and Michael very kindly is offering some online training for that group who are starting right now. So that is one of amazing kind of extras that we're offering if you book a discovery call this week with me. So if you're interested in that, if you want to deepen your global leader communication, you want to learn more about confidence from Michael and discover some of the other amazing extras, please do message me this week. You have to message me this week. So find me on LinkedIn, Victoria Reynoldson, and message me. So just wanted to say thank you, Michael, as well for generously sharing. But Michael, I'm sure there'll be people here listening, watching, who would love to find out more about you, follow you. What are the best ways for them to kind of be in touch and learn more about your work as well?
Sure, there's loads. So LinkedIn is a good one. I'm always on LinkedIn most days. I try and post content, make it really good content. So reach out to me. Just send me connection requests. Like, I'm not going to deny it. just reach out on LinkedIn, send me a message. I have my business, kataholos.co.uk. Just Google Kataholos. It's a made-up word, and it'll come up. Facebook, Instagram on that. I have an online learning platform called katoslearning.co.uk. That's launching this month. That's my global learning platform. So you can tell about that another time. And then one other thing, I have a podcast which Victoria likes, which is called Food for the Journey. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple, it's on everywhere. And there's 8 seasons now. They're little 20-minute episodes, and they're like motivational talks / training sessions. So there's a lot of content on that online learning platform, katahoslearning.co.uk. There's like 2 hours, just free stuff. Just fill your boots, have it.
Amazing. Well, Michael, I know you are so amazing in terms of how much you share out in the world. I know you do your videos. I know you have also your newsletter you send out. Brilliant questions joining today. Thank you so much for answering all of those. Really appreciate everybody who joined here live today. But even if you're watching this on replay, I hope it's okay, Michael. Maybe people can put their questions, tag you, me, tag both of us, and we can maybe answer if there are any further questions. But deeply appreciative of your kind of participation here today. Lovely to see you as well, Michael. And thanks to everybody joining us here. Really great to see everyone today.